want to start off by clarifying something. First and foremost, racism is always going to exist so long as men are existing. There's always going to be hatred and evil and murder and malice and vice and poverty, all these different things. Even Jesus says, the poor you always have with you, right? We live in a crooked world, and it's not God's fault or Satan's fault. It's because of men, ourselves. Men are the problem, and of course, every person is always, somebody will say something like, oh, if God's real, why is there evil in the world? It's like, what they mean to say is that all the evil is everyone else or everything else. It's like we're all thinking it's everyone else in the world, but the problem is not external, it's internal. It's in each and every man is bringing out. He said, out of the heart of a man proceeds forth evil. So the evil in the world is not, if you take men out of the world, there will be no more evil. So where's it coming from? If you were to take men out, there's no more racism. If you take men out, there's no more hatred. If you take men out, there's no more promiscuity. If you take men out, there's no more lust. If you take men out, there's no more slander. If you take men out, there's no more wickedness. If you take men out, you understand? So the problem is men. It's us. Do you understand? I think that's where you first start. And so this idea that you think we're going to solve or end racism does not make any sense at all. Because to remove any kind of evil, you have to remove men. Because the problem is, racism isn't a problem in and of itself. It's not a thing that it has its own life. It's coming from the hearts of men. With any evil. So if we're going to solve any evil, we're going to have to get rid of all men. That's the only way to get rid of evil in this earth. In this earth, we'll have to get rid of men, which we're not doing. So it says in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 29, listen to this. Behold, this is the only reason for it that I have found. God made man upright, but they, men and women, have sought out many devices for evil. You see, in another place in Jeremiah 17, verse 9, he says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? In that the problem is not some external thing. He said God made man upright, but men sought out devices. In other words, he made man good and God created all things good. It's we that corrupted what he created. And so now we have all these problems, not because they're just inherently here, but because we created these problems. We wanted to live life our own way and set our own standards and do life our own way. And this is the world we have now. And now men are trying to fix the problems that we created. And that's why they're never going to get solved that way. You see, and it sounds like sounds sort of pessimistic. So you're saying there's nothing we can do to fix the world? No. But the goal here is that this is what you can do. That you find out what God created you for, and you do that. You're not going to fix everything in the world. You're not going to save the world. Even Jesus couldn't save everybody, right? There are still people even in Jesus' day that didn't believe him. You're not going to save everybody. What you can do is to help who God sent you to help. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing what I can do right now. I'm doing what I'm called to do. By your understanding, I'm not going to save everyone. No matter what you do, there will be evil men. You're not going to stop that. What you do is to focus on why God sent you to the earth. Focus on your assignment. There's a problem he sent you to solve. Just solve that problem in your generation. And the problem you solve is not going to end all the world's problems, but you're going to do what you have to do. It's that simple. It's not complicated. It's no matter what country you're in, no matter what problems you're facing, as a believer, all that I need to focus on is doing what I'm called to do. So say, for example, because the context here in America, let's face it, we're not dealing with the kind of racism we were dealing with a couple of decades ago. It's no longer systematic racism. It's racism in men. If there is any kind of racism, it's not systematic. It's not from the government. It's not from policy. It's not from law. It's going to be from men. If there is racism. So, but even if I was in a country where there was legal racism, like legally a black man can't do this or this or that and third, still, I would still have the same answer. If you ask me, what should I do? I would say, do what God sent you to do. It's my scene. So I'm not only saying that because we may not be facing a severe kind of racism in America, even with the level of racism that we may deal with. I'm not saying we are or we aren't. Even if we are, whatever kind of racism we're dealing with, it's the same answer, same perspective. I've come to do the will of him that sent me. My mind doesn't get off the focus of what I was sent to do, because there are societal problems. There will always be problems. If I'm going to let the problems in the world distract me from what I'm called to do, then I'll never get anything done. There's always going to be some new problem. You're never going to get in a place in the world where everything's going to be okay and now I can focus on. No. There's always going to be problems in politics and this one and that one. So just remove yourself from the noise. Just focus on what he sent you to do. Fulfill that assignment and get out of here. It's that simple. Because what's going to happen to this world is that this world is already condemned. God's done with this earth. We've already ruined this one. We ruined the first plan. So what he's going to do is that he sends Jesus Christ. Those that believe in him will be saved from the damnation coming to this earth, and they'll be taken to the new one God's going to create. So this house is burning down. You see, the house is burning down. Yes, things are broken. We're not coming to fix the house, really. We're just coming to give people a way to have passage and access to the new house that's being built. If you understand what I'm saying metaphorically. My investment, my mind is not on this earth. This earth is done. There's no hope for this one. All I'm doing is to come and help the people I can help that are in this burning house, so that number one, they can be able to go to the new house that God is building, and number two, that's all I can do. I'm not going to fix this house. This one's burning. There's going to be problems. There's going to be wood burning. The house is burning. There's going to be evil men. The world is wicked. Yes, that's there. So what? That's it. That's it. It's like, it's not a complex answer, right? It's, even if I was in a country where legally I would still have the same answer. You're not going to, okay, so say for example, you'll say, oh, Martin Luther King. Okay, you'll say, what if Martin Luther King had that perspective? What if he said, oh, don't worry about racism, just focus on your assignment in life? Yeah, I could still say that about Martin Luther King, because what he did was what his assignment was. The thing he was dealing with was a systematic oppression, where literally a black person and a white person can't be in the same schoolroom. That's a different discussion. That's his assignment. That's what he's called to do. And he did that. And that's what he did. And now we have what we have now. A man fulfilled his assignment. But he did what God called him to do. You see, so it wasn't just him up. It's not like what we have now where people are just angry on social media. They're not actually trying to do anything. They're just angry because social media tells them to be angry. So they're all killing us all. And then it calms down, and then they also calm down. It's not a real calling from God. It's just they're just angry because social media is telling them to be angry. So don't try to compare the fake agenda we have now to what someone like a Martin Luther King did. That was a real human being that had a real calling from God to solve a real problem, and not just people on social media pretending to be political activists for 2 months and then it blows over and then nobody cares anymore. That's a fake. There's the agenda behind that too, but I'm not even here to talk about that. But you post black screens as if that's going to solve something, and you're only doing it because social media said to do it. You're not actually going to solve anything. It's just because that's the trend. It's a cool thing. It's not a real calling. So I don't like when people act as if they're actually trying to solve something. Oh, Randy, what are you talking about? We can't act like you shouldn't care about this stuff. I'm not saying we don't care, but you saying that, you're acting like you're actually doing something. You're not doing anything. You're just posting a black screen. Martin Luther King was out there marching and actually putting together people to solve a problem, which he did solve, which wasn't racism, but it was the systematic oppression that was happening at that time. A black person couldn't drink out of certain water fountains. That's a real problem. That's a physical problem I can see with my eyes and actually stop, which he did by God's help. It was a calling. So that's a man filling his own assignment. But if that's not my assignment, I'll just focus on what I'm called to do. So me as an individual, being a young African-American male, what do I do? I'm not afraid of some magical white man in the air that stopped me from succeeding in life. The life that I'm living was ordained by God. When God ordains something, he's gonna back it too. There's no one that can stop me from doing what God called me to do. Not a man, not Satan. If Satan can't stop me, how can a man stop me? If the devil can't stop what God's doing in my life, how can a man stop me? I'm not worried about, yes, even if I go to another country and there's I want to go build real estate in a different country, say for example, and a white man doesn't want to give it to me, it wouldn't bother me, because if God told me to go there and do that thing, there's no one that's gonna stop me. Now, I don't know what to say for an unbeliever, but I know as a believer, if God is backing something I'm doing, I don't care if I'm going in a country where every single person there hates black people, I'm still going to do it because God sent me. And when God sends a man, he backs that man. If I'm going by myself, I can't justify a claim that God's going to back me because I have my own agenda. But if I'm moving based on God's agenda, God's going to back me. It doesn't matter who's racist or who's evil or who's this or who's that. It makes no difference. If God's backing me, God's backing me. There's going to be many, even Satan's going to try to stop it. He still can't stop it, right? Just like there was a time in the Bible where Jesus was going from one side of a place to another through a boat and a storm came, right? Of course, Satan's going to bring storms. There are going to be storms in life. But if God, and he was sleeping in the boat while there was a storm, trying to stop him from getting to the other side. But his mindset is, if God said I'm going from A to B, I don't care what tries to stop me. I'm getting there because God said I'm going. So I'm not worried about some white man trying to stop. Even if there was, even if I literally lived under systematic racism, I still wouldn't care. It doesn't make a difference. God said go, so no one stopped me from going. And then you add on top of that is, I have a privilege of being in a country where people are acting as if like I should fear for my life going outside my house. No, I should not. Look at the numbers. I'm not even really here to talk about that aspect of it, but even still, even being in America, like, I have no statistical cause to go outside and be afraid that a white cop is going to end my life. If I look at the numbers, forget what I see on TV. If I look at the numbers, I have no cause. I have no reason to be afraid, nothing. But even if I did have a reason, I still wouldn't because God sent me here. So whether I do or don't have a reason to be afraid, I still am not because God is in my life. See, that's what I'm saying. It's a different perspective when you're born again. It's a different perspective when you're a believer because I'm not just looking at this from a human being's perspective of what do I do as a singular human being against a system of racism. No, I'm looking at it as God sent me to the earth. I don't care what the earth looks like and what's trying to stop me in the earth. Whatever God sent me to do, I'm doing it. Period. Now, for the person that's not born again, your angle on oppression and evil in the world is a little different because you don't have God protecting you. Unfortunately, I'm not happy at that, but that's the truth. And by the way, God is not protecting everyone. He's protecting those that have allowed him into their life. And the medium from man to God is Jesus Christ. So he said, I am the door. And he said, no man comes to the Father except through me. The only way to get to the Father is through accepting that Jesus Christ is Lord. If you have not made that decision in life, you have no access to the Father. That means the Father can't do much for you. You understand what I'm saying? So I have a confidence, even if I was in a country where they're killing black people, like literally legally, it doesn't make a difference to me because God is backing me. Do you understand what I'm saying? But for the person that's not born again, I'm not trying to make you afraid, but you do have a cause to fear because who's backing you? You're on your own agenda. You're living your own life. You see, when you're under God's government also protects you. When you're not under his government, you're your own God. You have to protect yourself. You're your own support system. So if anything bad happens to you, that's on you. That's on you and your family and whatever humans can help you. But to have God's help, he has to also be the ruler of your life. That means he has to be able to have the authority to dictate how you live, what you do with your body, how you marry, how you work. He has to be the one to be the government. He governs your life to also be the one. So if you have to be under his government to have his privileges, to have his liberties, just like in the U.S. government, to have the privilege of access to certain jobs or education, of that certain privileges of being a citizen, I also have to obey the laws of the land. I have to go both sides. I get the privileges of being an American citizen, but I also have to be under obedience to the laws of this land. So it's the same thing with God's government. To have the privileges of being in God's government, of having him protect your life, I also have to be in obedience to the way he operates his government as well. So for someone that's not under God's government, you can't guarantee that someone won't kill you. Someone can walk outside their house right now and put a gun to your head and blow your brains out. That's just the truth because you don't have God over your life. Again, you don't just, you can say you do because you can say I'm a child of God, but it doesn't work like that. I told you, Jesus Christ is the door to God. If you don't pass through him, you don't have God, period. If you ignore Jesus, you've ignored the Father. So you think you have God because you think because perhaps you grew up in church, or because perhaps you think that all humans are God's children, because that's what you think. That's not true. I told you again, the door to God is Jesus. If you ignore Jesus, you've closed the door on God. And so again, like I always do, I want to give the opportunity here. If anyone wants to give their life to Christ, what that would mean is that you would open that door to the Father and enter into his government. And say these words with me. Father, I thank you for sending the door, your Son Jesus Christ, to die for my sins and raising for my glory. I receive him and I receive his life in Jesus' name. Amen.